Hi, I'm Maddie,
And I'm Abigail, and this is
two writers.
Many Wrongs. Do you want to do the intro or do you want me to do it?
You can do it. You always do it so well.
Okay. Two writers, many resolutions. So, last episode was the end of 2024, and we talked all about the lessons that we had kind of learned along the way, and things that we've been able to accomplish. And so, now that it's the new year, we're going to try and focus on ways that we can get better and different places that we can try to like develop our writing and our professional careers. And I guess feel like adults, maybe.
Adult like, like,
I don't like. I
like,
will
how are we
say,
going to get a better trench coat for the three children stacked on top of each other that we are, really?
I will say, I thought about it today and I was like, holy shit, 2025. I graduated from college 10 years ago. Like, that's since I graduated my undergraduate 10 years ago. That's crazy.
I graduated from undergrad in 2013. Yeah,
You were probably one of those smart kids that did like dual enrollment crap, right?
I was in early college, so
Hmm.
I went to college at 16.
I'm Maddie and I'm so smart.
Uh, the truth
No,
will out, but yeah,
I know. Yeah. Yeah.
so it's even longer for me.
Yeah, no, but I mean it's one of those things that's really kind of wild to think about is that we're in 2025 and I think outside of like the 2 years that I was in grad school, this might have been 2024 may have been like the most that I've developed in my writing professional career.
That's
My
amazing.
my teaching professional career is a completely separate story. But I feel like for the first time in my life, I actually have some momentum moving into the new year when it comes to my writing.
Oh, that's really amazing. I
Yeah.
do I do feel like well, let's back up. So that this is all tying into New Year's resolutions.
Yes.
And my question to you is how do you feel about New Year's resolutions just in general?
I'm not a big fan because I don't like setting myself up for failure.
Yes.
So we've talked about it before, and I think we talked about it in the last episode. I like to do a New Year's bingo card. So I have a whole bunch of different goals, and then if I can accomplish some of them, I feel really good about it, but I don't feel beholden to I have to do this one thing. And I think I learned that lesson because for probably 4 years in a row, my New Year's resolution was to finish the edits on my first novel. And I just obviously never got that done until I think I finished them in 2020, maybe.
Hmm.
And then, of course, sent it to beta readers, which is a whole other step. But like, this is the first year I really feel like, I'm querying agents. So I don't want to set myself up for failure to be like, my resolution is, to get a full manuscript request or something that I have no
No
control
power
over.
over.
So that's what I like to do is the bingo card. How about you? I assume you don't like resolutions, guessing by your face.
No, I actually really like New Year's resolutions.
Really?
Yes.
Okay.
And the reason I brought it up was because my husband hates them, and we had recently discussed them. And
Hmm.
I was kind of curious about how he felt about, especially since we're doing an episode on that
Hmm.
type of thing.
Yeah.
I really liked the idea of the bingo sheet, which
Hmm.
you could define it, you could put things however you wanted to,
Yep.
and it did feel exciting when I got like a
Hmm.
line, like a bingo,
Yeah.
because even though I hadn't completed everything on my to-do list, it was like I completed a bunch of random tasks and
Yep.
I get a treat because of it.
Yeah.
And I really liked that. But I
Hmm.
also liked that the idea of like planning little tiny steps along the way that were
Yes.
worthy of being celebrated instead of
Yes.
being like, I want a full manuscript request.
Hmm.
It's like something like I want to write 10,000 words,
Hmm.
which is something that's, more tangible, something that's more in your power to control,
Yeah.
and then that feel like a milestone that you can get
Yeah.
some sort of reward for.
Well, I love that idea that you're talking about milestones because I feel like a resolution, it just, a year is a really long time. And obviously, not all resolutions last an entire year. I think one of the most common New Year's resolutions is, I'm going to lose weight. And some people might achieve that resolution or goal or whatever else 4 months in. But generally speaking, people pick these year-long goals that they're trying to attain. And that's so difficult. And again, I always feel like I'm setting myself up for failure. So instead of having like full manuscript request, one of my goals for, or resolutions for 2025 is to query 15 agents.
Yeah.
Because it does take so long to hear back from agents, and I don't want to do too many. But I feel like 15 is a solid number to show like I am really putting myself out there and trying. Um, and even if I don't, if all 15 of those are rejections, at least I accomplished that small milestone.
Yeah, I love that. Because something that I was doing for my resolutions too is like you're setting yourself up for failure when you say something like get a full manuscript request,
Hmm.
which you have no power over. What I've started doing is I've started making my goals very vague. So this year my resolutions were more like I want to walk more. I want to
Nice.
read more. I want to write more
Hmm.
and want to submit more. And so
Hmm.
those are things that like there's no number tied to it. I just need to do it more and just
Hmm.
continue to do it. But I've also decided because I am at my core, I was a corporate girly for a decade. It is in my blood. It is
Uh-huh.
something I do
Hmm.
so well. I've decided that I'm going to do quarterly goals.
Oh, I love that idea.
So instead of it being like I have to do this year, I'm doing
Hmm.
it by quarters because I
Hmm.
last year I tried to do goals in like month increments.
Okay.
And the older I get, the less time a month seems.
Oh
Like
my
I
gosh,
blink and a
yes.
month is over. So I
Yes.
think the a quarter is it's 3 whole months.
Hmm.
And 3 months is a good solid chunk of time to get something done. And so
Yeah.
I did vague goals for the year and then
Hmm.
did solid specific goals for this quarter and then kind
Nice.
of broke it down to little smaller chunks for
Hmm.
January, February, and March, just like I would have for my team when I was a director.
So can I ask what are some of your resolutions for this quarter?
For this quarter, yes, I have very specific stuff. So hold on, hold please. I have a, gosh, I have a,
Go ahead, say it. Say it.
no, no, it's not a spreadsheet. It's not a spreadsheet, but
Oh,
it is
hmm.
like a standard operating procedure type of documentation that you would have at a corporate job. So
That
it's all
sounds like corporate jargon for spreadsheet.
but it's a Word document.
Oh,
It's
okay.
like
Okay.
with bulleted points.
Okay.
So my goals for this quarter
Hmm.
are to establish a routine.
Hmm.
So to make sure that like, I'm getting in the habit of sitting at my desk at the same time and finding out like and working in sprints and making sure focusing on things like making sure I'm comfortable in my spot that I'm sitting because sometimes I'll be unfocused because my back hurts. So like finding
Hmm.
ways to make sure that my desk is again so
Hmm.
more corporate ergonomic so
Uh-huh.
that I'm able to sit at my desk
Yeah.
and not have like find ways to like cut
Hmm.
off myself from having excuses. Establishing realistic goalposts. So I kind of want, we talk about before where it's like you set a time limit for writing, or you set like a page count for writing, or like
Hmm.
a project goal, like finish my novel.
Yep.
So I kind of wanted to see which one of those goal types works best for me. So
Okay.
I'm going to do like some experimentation of like
I love that though.
for January, it's like I'm going to do time-based goals, and then
Hmm.
February, I'll do project-based goals and see which
Hmm.
one yields the best results.
That's such a great idea because we talk so much about like you should try writing in the morning versus writing in the evening. You know, you should try writing with music versus not writing with music. And I love that you're taking that idea of like figure out what works best for you as far as like reaching a deadline. Like what is the
Right.
better motivator for you? That's so smart.
And, I love spreadsheets and I love data. So this is like, I'm like, ooh, a scientific experiment. Let me take
Hmm.
detailed notes about what I'm getting done with these things.
Yeah.
And I know this is not like for everybody to do stuff like
Oh,
this,
of course.
but it's how my brain works.
Yeah.
And so I've established some stuff like specific projects that I want to work on
Hmm.
and that I would like to get. So I have my short story collection I wrote in college
Hmm.
for my MFA. I would like to finish editing those stories. And so
Yeah.
my goal is to have one short story edited per quarter
Okay.
with a stretch goal. There you go. There's some more terminology for you.
Hmm.
I was a director. I lived in that corporate world for
It's
so long.
okay. I have zero experience in the corporate world, so this is hilarious
Yeah,
and
count
enlightening to
yourself worth.
me.
Count yourself
Uh-huh.
worth.
Yeah.
Yeah, like people used to take me seriously, Abigail.
I have no comment on that.
Uh, I have some other projects that I want to work on. I
Mhm.
think I've
Yeah.
I've gone enough into this, but that's
No,
what
but
my goals have been.
I love the idea that you're breaking up into quarters and then kind of breaking it further. So in the similar way that like my bingo card has, like the smaller goals fit into it, I'm just giving myself, the entire year. But I love that you're giving yourself small celebrations
Hmm.
because even if, let's say, you don't reach the quarterly goal of editing one story each month, if you do it for the first 2 months, that's still two small celebrations.
Yeah.
So I
But
really love that.
that's another thing that I've built into these goals is my goal is to have by the end of the quarter one short story edited,
Hmm.
but that I would like to do one per month instead of one
Hmm.
per quarter.
Yeah.
But giving myself that freedom that your goal is only one.
Hmm.
It'd be cool if you could do three, but you
Yeah.
don't have to. And
That's
so
so nice.
then it makes it feel like if I do one, I'm like, I did my thing. If I do two, it's like, wow, I really went above and
Hmm.
beyond. If I did three, I'm like, I am so amazing. So it kind of
So
gives you that little freedom there.
I love that you have that mindset because I have the type of mindset where I go, okay, I really want to get these three things done, but if I only do one, it's going to be okay. But in the back of my head, I go, yeah, but you're going to do all three, right? Like you have to do all three. Like actually, three is the real goal. And then if I don't do all three, I'm disappointed in myself. So I like that your brain allows you to break it down that way, but like I would have to have a very hard and fast, like, no, your goal is one per month. That's it. Which I think is why the bingo card kind of works for me because it's those vague goals.
Right. I
Yeah.
think I think at the end of the day, we're very different people. And I think
Yes.
in this
In the
specific
best
type
way.
in this aspect, but I do think it's interesting to see like how very differently because
Hmm.
I've always been a science logic girly. And so I'm
Yep.
like, how can I take this very creative thing I
Hmm.
do and make it into math? I don't know.
I
Why?
don't know. Yeah. I mean, again, gardener architect. We are fundament. It's just, we talk about it all the time, but even though we're very similar people, personality wise, and like the way that we interact with the world, we are fundamentally built differently. And I really love how that reflects in not just our writing, but in things like these resolutions. So, like, some of the resolutions that I have for the New Year's, obviously with, querying agents and things like that. But I also, one of my goals for the year is to input all of my beta reader notes into my second novel to get that ready to start querying. I don't think I'm actually going to accomplish that goal. Like, if last year's craziness is any indicator, I would be lucky if I get halfway through, but I still have to put that goal on the board so that I at
Yeah.
least am trying to move towards it. Because if I say to myself, oh, well, you only have to get 5 chapters done, that's exactly what I'll get done. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to like put those loftier goals up there.
Yeah.
And then I took a year off from teaching when I had Maggie, and I am really excited to get back into teaching this year. So I actually start like the second week of January. No, third week of January? Doesn't matter. I start sometime in January. Um, and I'm panicking because I still don't have access to like my Canvas account and to be able to set up my classroom online and all that kind of stuff.
How many emails or phone calls have you made?
Don't don't do that to me. Why would you do that to me? I'm so worried my new boss already hates me because I have bothered him so much over the holiday break. But there's another piece of me that's like, well, you should have given me this information then. You hired me at the end of November. It's not like I wasn't sending emails then. But no, all of this to say, I'm really excited to be back in the classroom because the past 3 years of teaching have all been online. And as comfortable as I am teaching, I'm kind of excited and a little bit nervous to be back in the physical classroom because there is such an element of classroom management that goes along with that. that, and I feel like if you don't practice those muscles, they tend to fatigue, especially because generations change so greatly. So, like when I interviewed for my new teaching job, one of the questions I was asked was about using ChatGPT and AI when it comes to essay writing. And
Mm,
that's nothing I've ever had to think about or deal with. So, one of my kind of professional goals is to get more research into that and kind of understand it a little bit better. But I am also, because of my kind of my Pantser brain, I like to level with my students and have a conversation with them about, how many of you have used this? What do you use it for? How do you use it? How can we come up with a plan together to talk about this? Because I know that I'm already on my back foot. They already know more about this than I do.
hmm
So to go in pretending like I know what I'm talking about will only end in failure for me.
Yeah.
But I think that that's one of my big like teaching professional goals is to get a better handle on the AI side of things, so that I can have that conversation with my students being in the classroom and present in front of them.
Oof. AI is it's a huge topic to get into. So,
Yeah. Yeah, and it's just hard because, I've had students who have cheated before. I've had students who have plagiarized and it's always been really easy because if I'm like, this doesn't sound like this student, I can just copy and paste it, put it in Google, and it'll come up with the website it came from. AI is a whole different beast.
mhm.
But yeah, so I think that's one of my big professional goals, outside of like the writing aspect of things. Because you know me, I am always working on like six different professional things. I have four different jobs. I can't help it. That's why when I write, I have to only focus on one project.
I was just thinking that because I have like four different projects I'm working on at any
Hmm.
given time, but I only have,
Yeah.
I only had one job. I
Yeah.
couldn't imagine doing more than one. I really don't think I'd have the brain energy to do more than one job.
Yeah, it's a little exhausting from time to time. I am nervous about getting back in the classroom and having to rededicate that time to it because, before having a child or even, when I was teaching online, it was still different than when I was in the classroom because being in the classroom, I was able to say, hey, pull up a piece of paper, we're going to do a quiz today, and then pass it to a fellow student and then grade it and then not like actually have to deal with that or like be able to have a conversation about it rather than having to grade it. Whereas
Hmm.
teaching online, I had to grade every single assignment. There is no like, let's just have a discussion for the sake of a discussion when you're teaching online. Everything has to be graded. And it took up so much time to get through all of that. But it also really made me think about why am I assigning this and what benefit is it going to give to the students? And I'm going to have to relearn kind of all of those things and then also setting aside time to grade thoroughly.
That's really interesting. I'd never thought about that before, the difference in teaching style.
Mhm.
It's a lot more hands off, but at the same time, it's more hands on for you.
Yeah, I'm gonna say it's a lot more hands off, but it's a lot more intentional, if that makes any sense. Because it's so hands off, everything has to be more intentional along the way.
Hmm. It's really interesting. I only ever took one virtual class,
Mhm.
and it was the worst I've ever done in a class.
I could never be a virtual student. I did not enjoy teaching online, just because it's so hands-off and so distant. I never actually got a chance to connect with anybody. And especially as you know, teaching these English courses and these writing courses, so much of that lives in the discussion,
Hmm.
because, me reading something, interpreting it is completely different than you reading something and interpreting it. And, as
Yes.
authors, we know that we can write whatever we want, but it only matters what the reader interprets. We can't stand over their shoulder and tell them exactly what we were trying to say. They have to be able to get that. And so I really missed that aspect of being in person in the classroom to have those discussions.
Yeah, I think discussions were some of the best parts
Oh,
of
yeah.
English classes because you would feel the energy
Hmm.
of other people in the classroom and
Yes.
as an extreme introvert, I never raised my hand in class, like, ever
Oh.
as a kid, never. But when I got into college and we did
Hmm.
those little round table like discussions that were more open
Yeah.
and people could just chime in, I felt
Hmm.
very comfortable talking. And
Hmm.
I'd never felt comfortable talking in a classroom until that. And I was like, oh, actually, I really liked that part and I got that too. And then people would look at me and
Hmm.
they'd get really excited and they'd be like, oh yeah, that reminds me of this part. And that felt way more welcoming than like
Hmm.
teacher like, what is the answer to this question? Like it.
Yeah, yeah. This is not going to surprise you at all. I've always been a bit of a Hermione Granger. Hand raised straight up in the air, pick me. Um, and yet socially, I've always been an introvert. And so it's always been a very weird dichotomy of like people at school always knew my name, but not
Mm,
because I was popular in any way, shape, or form. If
mhm.
anything, it was the opposite. But I remember there's one time freshman year of high school, this teacher kept asking, what do we think about this? What do we think about that? And then she would tell us that we were wrong. And so at one point I raised my hand and I was like, I'm sorry, I'm just a little confused. Did you want my opinion or did you want your opinion? Because you phrased the question as if you wanted my opinion. So I'm just a little confused. She never called on me again. Not a single time for the rest of the year did that woman call on me for an answer.
That's so funny.
Yeah.
And you
Um,
just sit in the front of the classroom?
No, I was always a middle sitter. No,
Okay.
I want to be in the middle of the crowd. I just can't fucking keep my mouth shut, which should not surprise anybody who has been listening this long. I can't help myself from putting in my 2 cents. My mom says one of her biggest mistakes she ever made was telling my brother and I that our opinions mattered.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, So I grew up in a world being told that what I thought mattered, and then when I expressed my opinions later, my mom was like, "Can you just fucking go along with this for once?"
Oh, it's so funny because I'm
Ugh,
like the
I
exact
love her.
opposite. Like I have
Yeah.
to actively fight the
Hmm.
thing in my head that tells me nobody wants to hear what I have to say.
Yeah. See, I just live with that on the other side of it. I just say the thing and then spend the next 10 years thinking, nobody wanted to fucking hear that. Why did you say that? And then not sleeping because of it. So who's to say which is better?
Neither. I think there has to be a happy medium because
There
it is
has to be.
yeah.
What do you think like your overarching, if this was a perfect year, what would your like ultimate goal or resolution be for this year?
Do you not think that I have one?
Of course you do. Scroll down. What's at the bottom of the page?
I'm leaving. I'm leaving.
No, don't leave. I know you've written it down. I know that you put it on your manifestation board hanging right over your desk.
It's actually to the right. So, okay. All right.
Okay, tell me.
Since you asked so nicely.
Hmm.
So remember how I had this novel that I
Yes.
wanted to finish last year and start querying?
Yes.
So I took some time off for mental health reasons.
Good
I
for you.
finally gone back into it, and I have I've been reading a lot of books that are similar, like I said in the last podcast, to
Hmm.
what I want to write, and I've realized I don't think I have this. I am not quite the writer that I
Hmm.
need to be to write the book I want to write.
Okay, that's a really big realization.
So I'm putting it on the shelf,
Hmm.
and I'm going to spend this year
Hmm.
professionally developing myself to get the skills I know I need to write the book I want to write.
I love that. How do you plan to do that?
I have some ideas of things to do, such as working on the short stories.
Hmm.
I wrote a very short like YA novel
Cool.
when I was like years
Yeah,
ago.
yeah,
And I never really went back to it. So
yeah.
I think I could go back to that because I do have the skills
Hmm.
to write that novel.
I love that.
And I'm like, well, I have it's pretty much done. It just needs to be edited.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna do that and then maybe try querying that one this year and
Awesome.
practice not only the editing and revision of it, but
Hmm.
also the publication process, the querying process. And even if
Yep.
and there's less like my main novel,
Pressure.
yeah, my main novel is like my baby.
Yep.
Like
Hmm.
and I think she's gonna be like to me, she's always been my life's work. I've been writing this
Yeah.
novel into my heart since I was 10. So
Hmm.
it's so monumental and important to me. I need to do it right. And if I
Yep.
need to put it on the shelf again, I've done it before. I'll put it on the
Yeah.
shelf and I can work on learning
Hmm.
how to revise better. I can work on learning publication and submissions, how to write
Hmm.
cover letters and how to write query letters, how to talk
Hmm.
to agents, all that kind of stuff. It's something I can practice with a novel that it feels like less stakes. There's less at stake. Like it's not going to break my heart if this novel doesn't get written. I can write another one.
Yeah,
But if my main novel got rejected,
absolutely.
that'd break my heart.
Yeah. Yeah, I completely understand that. I I like that you are kind of doing these little like building block things. One of my goals for this year that I really want to participate in a little bit more are like not like workshops necessarily, but things like when we go to AWP, having some of that development there as far as like um, pushing myself as a professional, like handing out business cards, like talking up the podcast, talking to agents, things like that. And then on the other hand of that, like with the writing group that I run in Winter Park, I would love to work more on, stuff that you already do, like those quick writes, and practicing in those small ways. Because the only time that I really sit down to write is working on those big project novels. So I feel like I kind of have a twofold goal that fit into a very similar vein of your overarching goal as well.
Yeah, because I think when I was reading my novel that wrote back to me, it has so much that's so good, and I'm such a better
Mm-hmm.
writer than I was when I initially started it. But
Mm-hmm.
then I was comparing it to other books that I'm reading, and I don't have that
Hmm.
that level of language in it. And there's also because it's so I know exactly how everything goes
Yep.
that there's less room for experimentation. So doing
Mm-hmm.
my free writes, I've been able to experiment with setting and descriptions of characters and some plot points that I
Hmm.
would think would be cool to explore in my novel. That
Yeah.
again, I didn't have the space or felt like I didn't feel brave enough to do it
Hmm.
in the space of my novel.
Yeah.
But it's something that I can do break over here and
Hmm.
then figure out the right way of doing it and then bring it back to my novel
Yeah,
with free
definitely.
writes.
Yeah. Well, and I love AWP because it definitely helps on that networking side of things, but I would also love to go to a writers conference or writers retreat that's more focused on the writing aspect of things because I think that once you get out of like school, it is hard to find those environments that actually help you develop the actual act of writing.
Yes.
So I'd love to try to look into more of that, whether it's like I really benefited from having Masterclass the one year that I had it. Like I would almost buy another subscription to Masterclass, just for things like that,
Yeah.
um, that I think could be kind of fun.
That so I was rereading an old craft book that I read when I was an undergrad,
Hmm.
and it's all stuff that I know, but there's
Yeah.
something about revisiting it that kind of brings it makes it fresh. And I think
Yeah.
that's kind of we started a series that we have not really done anything with, but the
Hmm.
back to basics, I think
Hmm.
is something that it would be really good for us too to kind of
Yeah.
because I know when we did the first one, I had to do research. I read some craft
Hmm.
articles to kind of get to kind of relearn how to talk about it, and
Yep.
it like brought some things to the forefront that I hadn't been thinking about in terms of writing and things that I started looking for when reading as well.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's what I like about the Back to Basics series that we are definitely going to try and do more of. I like that it really does force us to go back to the basics as well. And so, a lot of the Back to Basics series is built off of the lectures that I've given to students, but then looking at it from, okay, so this is where a student would start from, where am I starting from, and how can it
Hmm.
improve my writing from where I am? Because I think that when we talk about back to basics, a lot of people think like, oh, going all the way back to, point zero. And that's not necessarily what it is, because when you read that craft book in undergrad, you were at a very different point. And now that you're reading it, today, same information, but has a wildly different impact on your writing.
Yeah, it's kind of like when you watch a movie and
Hmm.
you're like, this is a really good movie. But when you
Yes.
rewatch it, you're like, oh, the killer, he was right there the whole time and I didn't know it.
Yes. Oh my gosh,
So you
yes.
see things that you didn't see before because you have
Hmm.
the context that you were
Yeah.
missing when you read it originally.
Exactly. Yeah. Or even just reading the same, like I really enjoy rereading books, like at very different points in my life. And there's part of it that brings me back to where I was when I first read it. And then there are things that hit completely differently. It's the same thing. So like Gilmore Girls is one of my all-time favorite shows. And when I watched it in college, you identify with the main character, Rory. But then when you watch it later as an adult, you identify with different characters along the
Hmm.
way. And I think that that's really true about going back to these basic craft elements
Yeah,
is, like you said, you're going to notice the foreshadowing, but you're also going to be coming at it from a completely different point.
right. And it's like when you were a kid, you identified with SpongeBob, but now as an
Hmm.
adult, you identify with Squidward.
Obviously, all the time. I wish I could be SpongeBob again, have that kind of spirit. I know that last episode we did talk a lot about the podcast, obviously, because we were reflecting on it. But looking forward in the podcast, I am really excited to do more of those back to basics. I'm also really hoping to have more author interviews because that's something that I loved doing. So, like, that's one of my goals. Professionally for the new year is continuing to reach out to authors, try to make some of those connections. I'd love to maybe reach out to a literary agent and try and interview um, one of them. I think would be really fun because I love just sitting and talking with you. I could literally do this all day long, just making each other laugh. But I think like those bigger resolutions and goals is I want this podcast to really inspire our listeners. I don't want to do like a shameless plug, but if you're listening already, you probably know. I would love for people to share our content. One of my goals for last year was to get us 100 followers on Instagram. We have 88, so pretty good, but
Hey, that's
like
really good though.
right, for only having launched in March,
Yeah.
but like really trying to extend that reach. And so once again, my one of my goals for the new year is to get us 100 Instagram followers. So if by this time next year we have 188, that would be cool. It'd be great to have even more, but we'll see. Um, but because I work so many different jobs, all of my professional goals are so scattered of like my writing goals and the podcast goals and my teaching goals.
Hmm.
They're just chaotic.
I I mean that I think that's why I try so hard to be organized is because it is
Hmm.
all just chaos. And I'm like, I
Hmm.
need something to hold on to. And
Yeah.
so I do things like the spreadsheets and these Q1 planning
Hmm.
stupid document that I wrote because it just helps me like put the
Hmm.
chaos in something that makes a little sense that I can refer back to later.
Yeah.
But I do want to say I one of our listeners is my husband,
Uh-huh.
and he wants he wants to make video games.
Uh-huh.
And he says that nothing inspires him more to get into his working on his video game again than listening to this podcast.
Aw, Joshy, that's
Yeah.
so sweet.
And he just says, he's like, I just love listening to you guys because it just makes me excited about working on my own stuff. And
Aw.
he's been working really hard on his video game lately, and that's been really cool to kind of see him like brainstorming
Hmm.
ideas and talking to me about it. And he gets a lot of inspiration from that. So, that's nice to know that like
Well,
genuinely have inspired someone.
that makes me feel really good because that when we started this podcast, that was the main goal that I had was to provide something that I wish I had had when I started this writing
Yeah.
journey. Like if this podcast had existed when I was in undergrad or even in grad school, I would have eaten it up, you know? And so I love that even if it is, one of our husbands, like somebody super close, I love that we're able to inspire somebody and
Yeah.
hopefully we'll do check-ins throughout the year to see if we reach these resolutions, and maybe can inspire people just by celebrating those small goals.
Yeah. I think too, a goal that I have, I just moved to a new state
Hmm.
and I would very much like to put myself in the literary community here. I don't really know what that looks
Hmm.
like, if there's any book
Yeah.
clubs or writing, but it's something I'm keeping an eye on so that I can kind of get in, the know and know those people. And
Hmm.
that's kind of how you grow those networks is
Yeah.
meeting people. And it's very scary as an introvert to go do
Yes.
those sorts of things, but it's something that it's important to me. And I'm
Hmm.
gonna force myself to do it.
I love that for you.
Yeah, it's scary.
Well, I was about to say, and one of my goals as well is because I'm running this writers group in Winter Park now. I've left the bookstore for various reasons. But this writers group, they have really generously chosen to follow me rather than stay with the bookstore, which is where the group originated. And it's
It's
so
awesome.
much more pressure because now it's just me. It's not the bookstore writing group. I don't have, I'm not getting paid to do it. I don't have the support behind me. It's just me. And the two people that I was running the writing group with have both one of them jumped ship, one of them had a personal crisis and is no longer able to
Yeah.
participate, which she's wonderful. I wish her all the best. But it's a lot of pressure. So I am kind of hoping to build that writing community out so that maybe somebody else can help steer that ship because I don't ever want to give the false impression that like, oh, I know exactly what I'm doing because I also wanted to join this writing group to get insight. I don't want a second teaching job. I want a community.
Yeah.
And I think that's a little bit harder to form sometimes. So it'll be nice for you to be able to step into a community.
Yeah, I hope so. I don't really have the mental bandwidth to start a
Mhm.
community.
Well, you've already
And
started one online community. Like
yeah.
you've been steering a writing group ship for years. You
Yeah,
deserve
steering
to.
steering it right
Oh
into
my
the
God.
ocean.
No, no. But you've been a DM forever. You deserve to be a player for once.
Oh my gosh, I love that.
Oh, you're D20.
Oh,
No,
I
what is it?
I got a natural 20.
Oh my gosh. Okay, hold on. I have to go get my D20 and try. Hold on.
It's good that we
Watch me get
have
a one. This is going to be so bad. I'm so glad that you got a nat 20. I'm really scared. This is not a good idea
that
for me to be
I usually
doing.
roll terribly, so
There's no way this is going to end well. Hold on. I got a three. Oh God, please don't let that be a predictor for this year.
oh God, please let mine be a predictor for this year.
Yes, please let yours be a predictor. Please let mine be a fluke and a lie.
Well, maybe you have inspiration and you can re-roll.
I'm scared. What if I get lower? Oh, I got a 20.
You know, I handed out an inspiration to you because I'm a DM, and that's what we do.
There we go. Thank you. I do. I
That's
honestly,
that's wild that you rolled 20 the second time.
okay, here's the deal. I really hope now that that is actually an indicator for this year because I feel like that's the whole fucking writing journey is you keep getting handed fucking threes all along the way and you keep getting rejections and you keep getting fucking distracted from shit and then one day you get a nat 20.
It
One
only
fucking day.
it only takes one roll.
Well, it only takes somebody giving you inspiration. It takes somebody taking a chance on you and recognizing
Mhm.
you.
Yeah, because like for those of you who don't play D&D, inspiration is something that DM can give you when you've done something that they think is really cool and
Hmm.
deserves a little extra pat on the back, which allows you to re-roll. So if you have a bad roll and you have an inspiration, you're allowed to re-roll.
Yeah.
So that roll doesn't count. So,
I'm
things like
also,
being a good role player can do
yeah,
it.
yeah. Which
Sorry.
did happen last time that we played a session because I sat there and argued with you for like a full 3 minutes as a gnome. So that was great. But no, but I love that we're back with our metaphors. That's one of my
Here we
favorite
go.
things
Here we go
about this
again.
show
I
is
just want to
is
I just want to talk about D&D. That's all. That's all.
Yeah, I do. I really hope that that is indicative of this year of writing because I know it's going to be a struggle querying, but if I could just get one agent to look at me, that would be so exciting.
That would be very exciting.
Yeah. I applied to the AWP Writers to Agents program, which I did last time I went to AWP as well. So fingers crossed, because
Fingers
that would
crossed.
be awesome. The funny thing is, two of the agents I have already been rejected from.
Really? That's wild.
I know. So we'll see.
That's I don't even
Hmm.
that's
I
what are
sent
the
a
odds?
slightly altered query letter, so we'll see. But yeah,
Right.
there's
Because
six
it's
different
not like,
literary agencies. So, again, who knows? Um, but yeah, so, but I'm gonna keep sending shit out there and hoping that somebody sees me.
yeah, that's really what it's about. I have
Hmm.
already well, I've submitted one thing this year already.
Nice. Oh, it's literally January 2nd.
Yeah.
What are
I
you doing?
submitted I submitted something today, yes, today. And then on the 31st
Hmm.
of December, I also submitted something. So
Good for you.
two this week, but one this year, which is a weird thing to
Yeah.
I can't believe it's 2025.
I can't get over it, the number of people who have said to me, "Oh, the days they are long, but the years are short." And it's like, yeah, no shit, everybody knows that. But it sinks in more and more and more every fucking year. Um,
Hmm.
I was talking to my husband Michael or yesterday maybe, and we're high school sweethearts. So in February, we will have been together for 16 years, which is half of my life.
Wow.
Like we literally got together when I was 16 and thinking about like I still feel like a teenager often. I still feel completely lost and like I don't know what I'm doing and
Wild.
just how quickly time has moved and we're supposed to be adults and parents and working normal adult jobs and fucking paying taxes. It's this year I can already see it's going to go by so fast. And if I could just accomplish like one of my resolutions, I would feel really good about that.
Yeah. I think I'd be happy with being able to do one thing on my list. That would make me feel really happy.
Yeah.
But also to feel like I did my best.
Yes.
Because some years, like last year, I don't feel like I did my best. But this year, I want to try and do my best.
See, and that's so funny because I was going to say to you, and I said this last time, but like, I do feel like you did your best last year. I'm so proud of you for recognizing and taking a step back. And that's why I love your resolutions for this year. I love that you're like, yeah, I'm not ready to write that book the way that I want to write it. So I'm going to shelf it. Like, it's super brave. And I am scared that that's what I'm going to need to do with my first book. But it's already being sent to query. Like it is what it is. Um, but I think if I'm being honest with myself, I worry it's never going to be picked up because it's not any of those popular genres right now. Um,
Mhm.
and talking to you and
But there's a market for that though.
yeah,
There
but
is.
like specifically when we talked to Vanessa Montalban and she was talking about her first two books never made it off the ground. Like that is so scary to me, but it helps me so much to hear that.
Hmm.
Whether it was a timing thing with her or like you said, like you are not at the right point to write the book the way you want to write it. Like who knows? Maybe I'll have to shelve this book and go back to it in 5 years and improve it in some way, you
Because we
know?
talked about the book you're writing now, how
Mhm.
the second book
Yeah.
was once you had Maggie, it changed your perspective of how you wrote it.
Yeah,
And so maybe it's just something hasn't happened in your life that is going to really
exactly.
like turn the way you
Hmm.
think about the book.
Yeah, exactly. So, I,
And as we talked about in the last episode, there's no such thing as wasted effort. That
yeah,
was inspirations, those couple episodes, ago, but there's
whatever.
no wasted words.
Exactly.
It's all going into the pot.
Exactly. So, I do like the idea of like just trying our best, even if we can't hit the resolutions in exactly the way that we want. I just, I need to take at least a step forward, even if it's two steps forward, one step back. If we can just keep moving in the right direction, I'll be satisfied.
Yes. Any forward motion would
Hmm.
be very, very appreciated. And
Yeah.
I think the thing we to go back to the beginning of the episode, we are talking about
Hmm.
resolutions, whether we like them or not. Something I don't like about them, as you said, was you're setting yourself up for failure.
Hmm.
And I think that if that's how you see resolutions, it's probably best not to do that. Because like I had this
Hmm.
thing where I had a reading goal of how many books I wanted to read last year.
Hmm.
And I had a book that I had 100 pages left and I had 2 days left in the year. And I'm like,
Hmm.
well, I can't leave this till th this year. And so I was like, I'm going to stress read 100 pages
Oh.
just just to finish this book before the end of the
Hmm.
year. And I'm like, that's an arbitrary number.
Right.
Nothing happens when it turns another year. It's
Hmm.
okay if you don't finish it this year. Like it
Yeah.
doesn't make any difference at all, whether it's
Hmm.
this year or next year. But if you give it a little more time, you're going to
Hmm.
enjoy this book more than if you're stress reading it to just
Yes.
meet a deadline that you've made up in your head. So
Yeah.
I think too, it's important to, as we're always talking about, to give yourself a little bit of grace, and you don't have to do everything on
Hmm.
the resolution. Nothing's going to happen if you don't do it, and just take it as an opportunity to try doing something more.
Someday, when this podcast has more than 10 listeners and we start selling
15?
merch, there you go. Sorry, more than 15 listeners. And we start selling merch. What I want the slogan to be is give yourself grace, because that really is a theme that you and I consistently come back to with the authors that we talk to, with the way that we talk to each other. Like, I feel like that's almost the tagline of this show. It took us a year to figure it out. Um, but
Because
like,
we don't give ourselves grace. So we're constantly Abigail, remember,
we're reminding each
give,
other because we don't give
yes.
ourselves
No,
grace.
no, 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 no. But like I talk about it and I'm
Yeah.
like, I'm trying
Hmm.
to like,
Yeah. Hmm.
if I repeat it enough times, maybe I'll start to believe it.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. No, I love that. Um, I love that. Looking to 2025, I feel like we have some really good, like concrete resolutions. I also think that we have some great, like partway goals, those like saving checkpoints along the way.
Hmm.
I do want to hopefully in coming episodes do check-ins with each other just to see like where we are on those goals. Um, and I know I've already said this to you before, but one of my goals this year is to learn to plan or become a better planner when it comes to writing. Um, you look so happy. So I think that having those check-ins is going to be really good for both of us. And then I hope that it'll be good for our listeners too, because they can maybe do like an internal check-in about where they are in their goals.
Yeah, one of the things I've always thought of this podcast as something that like the reason I wanted to create this podcast is I know that as a writer, I have made a lot of mistakes.
Yeah, me too.
And so two writers, many wrongs, the whole title
Mhm.
is about
We're a bunch
learn
of
from
idiots.
learn from our mistakes so you don't have to make the same ones.
Yes.
So I think, being honest and coming onto the podcast and like doing
Hmm.
updates of how we're doing with our goals, how we've messed things up. Like I
Yeah.
really do feel like spending so much time trying to write that novel last year and like
Hmm.
having so much anxiety about it
Hmm.
was the problem was I did not have the skill set to make it the novel I wanted it to be, but
Right.
I was trying to finish it because that's what I thought I was supposed to do.
Right.
But I was unhappy with it because it didn't sound
Hmm.
like, and I was embarrassed to admit like I don't have the skills to do this. But at the end of this year, I kind of, at the end of last year, I realized I don't have the skills yet, but I do
Hmm.
believe I can have them. I don't think it's like beyond me. I don't think
Hmm.
it's like it's like I'm trying to solve a problem that I haven't gotten to that class yet, but I know
Yep.
that it's something that one day I'll be capable of doing.
Yeah. Well, it really it makes me think of the last 100 pages that you were trying to read of, yeah, you could speed read through this and finish the 100 pages and not really remember what you read and maybe misinterpret or miss things, or you could take the time to not necessarily meet the goal that you
Hmm.
had set, but do it right. And I think that that's one of the
Yeah.
things that you and I both struggle with sometimes is we want to do things right, but we both also want to do things fast. And that's just not really how writing works,
Right.
generally speaking. We're not Alexander Hamilton having an affair and writing hundreds of pages of work every day.
That's correct. Uh,
Musical theater teaches me very specific things.
Another reason I thought that I could, put that novel on hiatus is I have other
Mhm.
projects that I love
Yeah.
that I feel brokenhearted I can't work on them because I have to finish this
Hmm.
novel first. And I
Yep.
realized that it might be more advantageous for my career to work on these other projects.
Hmm.
But it's still really, it's not like, oh, the one novel that I was gonna write is
Right.
gone. I don't, it's I have a bunch of ideas for novels.
Yeah.
And that's just for now, this one has
Yep.
to wait a little bit longer.
Yeah. I hear you. Well, I'm really excited for this next year. I'm super excited for the podcast. I feel like that's kind of my like keystone for this coming year is I know that that is at least something that's going to get accomplished is continuing to make this podcast with you. And then I'm hoping that that keystone helps me put everything else into place.
Yeah, I hope so too. I really enjoy doing this podcast because it helps. I learn a lot about
Yeah,
writing just talking to you
same.
about it. I was like, oh,
Same.
I didn't know that. So,
Yeah, no, I think that it has become a really helpful guidepost, and I think that doing these check-ins is going to continue to help keep us accountable for
yeah,
um, not just talking the talk, but walking the walk.
right. So, just so our listeners know, this podcast is about us. It's not about you.
No, God, no, never. We
No,
literally just kind of record, and then Maddie like happened to put it on the internet. It's hilarious, really.
it's on the internet.
I'm Abigail,
And I'm Maddie, and this has been
two writers.
Many Wrongs.